was a loner, and I did not like to engage with a lot of people. And that made me feel safe. But it was a false sense of reality because I was desperately lonely. I didn't like who I was, and I was buried in this deep, dark pit of sadness. I was lost. I was a wandering soul without purpose or direction. And when I did venture out, I had this facade that masked my private despair. I didn't think that I was good enough, and I was fearing judgment from others. There were many experiences as a kid that really had a profound effect on what I believed in myself. In kindergarten, I remember I was having fun and I was really happy and excited about grade 1. Because there were so many students applying for grade 1 and there weren't enough spaces, I was held back and had to wait next year and repeat kindergarten again. I couldn't understand why. I wanted to go to grade 1 now. I was so disappointed and very unhappy. And when I went to kindergarten again, I misbehaved. And I spent a lot of time in the corner on my mat, alone. When I was older, I used to joke, oh, I failed kindergarten. And actually, I believed I had. About a year later, I was learning how to ride a bicycle with training wheels. And one day, I took them off, and I was able to ride my bike. I was so excited. I looked around, and it was still and quiet. And nobody was there to cheer me on. My excitement turned to anger. Where's my father? Why isn't he here? I decided at that time that I was going to be doing things on my own, alone. In the same time frame, I was watching TV with my dad and sister. And on the TV program, this guy was sitting in a wheelchair because he had lost his legs. And I was curious. I said, hey, Dad, will those legs grow back? Well, my father lost it, and he reprimanded me. Michael, you're so stupid. Why don't you think before you ask the question? I didn't know. That's why I asked. So I sighed. I retreated inward and continued watching the program. I felt ridiculed. I felt small. I felt weak, like a puppy being scolded. From that day on, I did not like asking questions, and I felt safer in my silence. My parents came from the generation where children should be not seen, and whenever I asked why, they just said, because that's the way it is. I was confused. Why can't I speak up? So whenever my parents had their friends over, I would be sitting there listening to them, with my hands folded on my lap like a good little boy. Their smoking, their drinking, and their stupid antics made me feel awkward and upset. And when I was excused, I bolted to my bedroom because that was my only sanctuary. I remember the dining room table, eating with my family, my dad, my sister, my mom, and my dad would always hold court. And when I wanted to be part of that conversation, he would tell me, Michael, keep quiet and finish your dinner. I glared at him in contempt. So I complied, and I immediately left the room, feeling dismissed and not heard. So when I was growing up, I believed that I did not have a voice, and it was best just to keep quiet. When I was 12 years old, I was really excited. I was going on a train with a roommate from Winnipeg to Calgary to visit my godfather. I was so excited. I was going alone. I remember sitting in the dining car, and I was approached by a stranger, a man. I don't really remember much, but I do remember walking back to my roommate with him. And inside, we were both lying on the bed, fully dressed. He was hugging and spooning me. I was very uncomfortable. I was really scared. I asked him to leave, and he did. I was just there all alone. I thought that I had really done something wrong, and I never told anybody. And I buried that so deeply so I could forget. And I carried a lot of shame and guilt until I shared that story many decades ago. And this experience is still a mystery. I had this expectation that my parents wanted me to be perfect at everything I did. And when I made a mistake, I was so hard on myself. Michael, you're so stupid. You're not supposed to make any mistakes. You gotta do better. And even today, I have difficulty when I'm doing something, I drop something, or something happens, I get upset with myself. And I have to stop, Michael, what's going on here? You know, take care of yourself. When I was 12, I started smoking cigarettes. It was cool. I felt a sense of belonging with my other friends who were smoking. At 15, we started drinking beer. And I was a lousy drinker from the get-go. I would drink too quickly. I would get drunk too fast. I would usually vomit. And I would just feel horrible about myself. Yet I kept doing it again and again to numb my pain of sadness. At 15, in high school, I started smoking pot. And I like how it made me feel. It was different than alcohol. And I seemed to have this sense of freedom and control. And what I was aware of is the excitement in the ritual of using. It's the thinking of doing it. It's the getting it. It's the preparing. It's the doing. And it felt great for a while. Then it was over until the next time. I consider myself a recreational user. And I was aware that when I overindulged, I became more disconnected and more isolated. And then when I was thinking I was numbing my sadness, I was also numbing my joy. So numbing wasn't being selective, it was numbing all my feelings. When I was 45, I had a successful real estate career, yet I was feeling empty and restless. So I made a decision. I sold my house, when in hindsight I should have rented it. And then I moved to Costa Rica where I had bought a bed and breakfast. And I remember the first night sitting there, looking around, and I had this deep feeling that it wasn't going to work out. I had made a mistake, and I had already failed. Okay, I'm going to do my best, and I can see if I can make this a go. Yet over the 2 years that I was there, I started increasing my drug use so as to cope with the situation and numb the pain of failure. And what happened was my business was failing. I was struggling. And I realized that this isn't going to work. And I felt so dejected and so deflated that I was decided it was time to let it go and go back to Vancouver and see if I could get my life back on track. When I arrived in Vancouver, I had gone to a psychologist to help me with my problems. And during the session, she asked me, Michael, how do you feel about the death of your father? And I said, I don't feel anything. She was surprised. I thought she was surprised. And she said to me, are you emotionally dead? Oh, I didn't like being called out, and I felt really triggered. I never came back. And I thought, maybe she was right. And that's why I was so offended and felt upset. A year later, I was working in a fine dining room, and I met my partner, Jenny. And we embarked on a healing journey. And we've been together now for 24 years. And for that, I am very grateful. And thank you, Jenny. I thought that I had my substance abuse under control and that it was manageable. I was home alone, and I was feeling really despondent, and I didn't care about anything. So out of character, I went out late at night, and I didn't come back till the next morning to face the music. I had enough. I was sick and tired of the lie. I did not like how I was feeling. I did not like what I was doing, and I did not like where my life was heading. I had to make a choice. And if I chose the path that I was on, I would lose my relationship, and I would probably die alone and lonely. I chose life and connection. I was willing and committed to look in the mirror, to remove that mask, to dive deep, and to deal with the good, the bad, and the ugly, and find my authentic self. A couple years later, I was working in the real estate industry as a sales manager, and one of my clients had filed a complaint about a realtor. And as the managing broker, I had to respond to the real estate council. That incident took me out emotionally and mentally. I started to believe my thoughts that I was guilty of a wrongdoing, I was going to lose my job, and my life would be ruined. And not soon after, I found myself standing on the Lionsgate Bridge, looking to see where the best place would be to jump. Thank God I didn't do that. I white-knuckled it alone, all by myself. I didn't tell anybody, and I didn't even tell Jenny. I got through it. And with all that angst, the case was dismissed, and nothing happened. Go figure. That was a wake-up call for me to realize that I had become so disconnected again. I had the tools. I had support in my life. I knew how to ask for help. Yet, I let myself come desperately close to choose suicide as a solution. I felt complacent, and I let my thoughts get the best of me. And how could something so insignificant make me want to consider taking my life? I learned that I stopped asking the questions whether my thoughts and beliefs were true. I recommitted to my inner work, which is an ongoing process. I take emotional risks, and I'm more vulnerable in sharing my thinking and feelings, whether afraid or not. I ask myself, am I willing to sacrifice my life for not doing the work? I'm committed to my recovery. It's my gift to me. I want to live, and I want to experience life. And so I have to do the work. I feel like that little boy who's making a mistake, and I feel lost right now. I feel sad. I realize that I don't blame my parents or society for my life choices. I take full responsibility and hold myself accountable. I look at my dark moments not with disdain, but as golden opportunities to learn and grow. And I have a better awareness of discerning spending quality time alone versus isolating. And I am gentler and kinder to myself. For almost 2 decades, I've been clean and sober. I feel good. I feel comfortable in my own skin. I can look in the mirror and see my authentic self. I am connected and I'm at peace. And I am so grateful for where I am today. And I'm excited about where I'm going tomorrow. I was never lost. I was always here.